Welcome to Gluten Free Unwrapped, the podcast that takes you inside the stories of the founders, CEOs, and influencers who make the gluten-free industry tick. Whether you're living a gluten-free lifestyle, building a brand, or just love a behind-the-scenes look at how your favorite products came to be, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Jenny Finke, and this is Gluten Free Unwrapped. I'm excited to welcome Suzie Carpenter, the founder of Savor by Suzie, to Gluten Free Unwrapped. While Savor by Suzie is now famous for its irresistibly crunchy gluten and grain-free pretzels, Suzie's path here was anything but simple. In 2000, when her daughter Kelly was diagnosed with autism, celiac disease, and more than 25 food intolerances, Suzie and her daughter faced a world of limited food options. Suzie channeled her family's love of pretzels to create the world's first grain-free pretzel. And not only that, Suzie has been on a mission to provide meaningful employment opportunities for neurodiverse individuals. So I feel so lucky to have gotten to know Suzie over the years. And today I get to share her beautiful story with you. So Suzie, welcome to Gluten Free Unwrapped.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, so glad to have you here. I have wanted to share your story for so long. We met at Expo West in, I think, 2024. That's when I first met you. And you were telling me a little bit about your background and your story. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's so many layers, so many cool things that you've been doing in this industry. And I cannot wait to share that today. So let's start a little bit with your story. I want to get into your backstory and dive into that a little bit. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about what life was like before you created Savor by Suzie?
Oh, good one. So before Savor by Suzie, I was a coach. And so I was working with clients and with nutritionists and doctors' offices and speaking at conferences and really trying to help people who needed to follow specific diets or who were looking to change their health through dietary changes, and just really guiding them through whatever process they needed, and also where maybe they needed support just in understanding, how to cook or how to take the first step or things like that. So I really was a mentor in addition to a resource. And one of the things I loved about coaching so much was it took a lot of the life's lessons I had through Kelly's journey, through my journey, through all the research I had done, but really through my life, being the middle child of 5 girls and sort of being the point that people went to, the person that people went to. And finally in coaching, it was safe to love people unconditionally, to be give them a whole lot of love around what they wanted to do.
Yeah. Was it life coaching or nutrition coaching?
It was nutrition coaching. It was nutrition coaching. Yeah. I went to, so Kelly, our daughter, who's our reason for being, was diagnosed with those food allergies, as you had mentioned. And that changed my life forever, because prior to that, I ate whatever I wanted and didn't think twice about it. And so learning that she had to be gluten-free when she got the celiac diagnosis was the first step. Was oh boy, okay, how do we deal with this? She's 4 years old and, it's the year 2000 and there's no internet, and how am I going to figure out what this means for us? So we relied heavily on nutrition stores, health food stores, to not just show us what kind of products we could buy, but also what that meant and how we would integrate that into our lives. And so, for us, it was really becoming a lifestyle around, this is what you do to feel good. This is what you do to recover. This is what you do to be happy. And it just really changed our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I think children are born to the right parents, and Kelly couldn't have asked for a better mom, someone who actually went to learn about nutrition and everything she could to help her daughter. And we're going to get a little bit more into that story in a bit, but I wanted to also ask you about a little bit about your childhood and your father, because did you tell me that your
Mm,
father was this entrepreneur in the pretzel
yeah.
business? Is that right?
So you know what's funny? I remember distinctly being at Expo West with you, and I had this necklace on, which I don't know if anybody will be able to see it, but it's a little pretzel heart. And it was my mother's necklace. My father gave it to my mother. My mother then gave it to me, and I wear it a lot because it makes me think of my dad. And he passed in 2012. So I carry him with me every day and in many ways. But so my father, when I was a kid, bought a factory that was a pretzel factory. He was a serial entrepreneur. He was, when I was 2 years old, he was a race car driver. He was a um, what do you call it? Snow ski patrolman on the ski slopes. He bought several companies throughout the years, and one of them was this pretzel factory, pretzel bakery, which at the time was exclusively known as the Bachman Company, Bachman, and they made wheat pretzels. And they had the only pretzels, well, to this day, they have the only pretzels that are hand twisted. Like literally, there's metal arms on the machines that take the dough and twist it. And
Oh,
every
wow.
pretzel is twisted like that. And so all of a sudden, our life changed because my father bought this company and this bakery that was not just making pretzels, it was also at the time making cheese curls and that were called jacks and potato chips and tortilla chips. So all of a sudden, we our family became snack people, and we had all these snacks in our house. And my dad was running this company, and we just thought it was very, very cool. So pretzels became a way of life for me as a kid. I mean, they were in our school lunches. They were anytime we packed a picnic or went on a trip, pretzels went along for the ride. And it just became something that to this day, I walk into our factory because it's the same factory and I just get excited. I'm like, there's just so much history here, so much of a legacy here. And it's a bunch of people that give their hearts and souls to something and have for a long time, and they believe in it. And, we make something, it's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you inherit the pretzel business from your father?
Well, I have a big family. So when my father died, my husband and I bought out the family business, and it's just my husband and I that were running the business. So my husband was in the business for pretty much the only family member that was in the business besides my dad. So it made sense for us to take over the company. And so yeah, so
Wow.
it's a husband wife now situation, but I am 100% on the Savor by Suzie side of things, and
Okay.
my husband is on the what we call co-manufacturing side of things.
Oh, wow. Okay. And it's so funny, like you think about how your father probably inspired this business for you, and then your daughter has inspired this new wave of the business for you. It's sort of a generational inspiration, I guess we could say.
Like, yeah,
Um,
going both ways. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. So I want to talk a little bit about like your journey in starting Savor by Suzie, about, how it's a grain-free pretzel. And I read on your website that it was the world's first grain-free pretzel. And I want to I want to ask you, how did that idea come about? And this is more even talking about your daughter Kelly. Like, how is she the inspiration behind coming up with this world's first grain-free pretzel?
Yeah, well, she, as I mentioned earlier, was diagnosed with celiac disease, and after we went gluten free, she still wasn't feeling well. So we ended up with a doctor that specialized in gut health and the autism gut brain connection, and he really helped us with understanding that she had more, I would call them food triggers, but delayed food allergies. So those food allergies aren't really technically allergies, they're more sensitivities, but yet they do still make people feel really awful, whether it's, you know, GI symptoms or headaches or skin issues, or it can be mood issues. It can be a whole bunch of different things. And so she still had a lot of the symptoms of celiac disease even after going gluten free. So he guided us towards a grain-free diet. He said, I would really like for you to try this diet. And the diet that we embarked on was a real journey because I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called the specific carbohydrate diet, or SCD for short. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it. Yeah. But tell me more.
Okay,
I want to
yeah.
hear it from you.
It's based off of a book called Breaking the Vicious Cycle. And at the time, the author of the book was still alive, and we heard her speak, and she actually had a little group of moms that she was coaching on this diet. We all had kids with autism, and she was really, really helpful and instrumental in our journey because we actually felt worse before we felt better. And I kept
Wow.
questioning myself and thinking, what am I doing? Why I'm making her feel worse. I decided to go on the diet with her. So I was her partner. I said, I'm going to do this with you. And I don't know that it really mattered to Kelly that I was her partner at the time, like when I said, I'm doing this with you, but I needed to do it. I needed to feel for myself what was happening and what we were doing. So I felt it too. I did not feel well. And so there was a lot of, doubt and just fear around, what were we doing? Why were we doing it? Was it really going to make a difference? It was a big investment in time and energy and resources. But what ended up happening was, after I would say almost a year, it took us a full year to kind of hit the good spot, the sweet spot, if you will. Um, you know, we just felt we just felt so much better. We felt more
Mm.
energetic. We felt less symptoms. A lot of her autism symptoms subsided, sensory issues, tantrums, insomnia. And so we just realized that whether it was the inflammation or the specific foods, whatever was going on, we just realized that the power of food and, the ability to affect our mood and through what we eat was something that I was going to hold on to for a long time.
Wow. I think so few people really understand the power of food and how it can impact so many diseases, our mood, our behaviors, and all these things. So you and Kelly were onto something pretty early on, sort of before I think the food trends had gone in the direction
Yeah,
of gluten and
we were
grain free.
we were pretty lonely. I was pretty
I
lonely back
bet.
then.
I bet. Wow. Okay.
But
So,
I'm a very committed person. I like to follow through with what I start, and so we stuck to it, and it really, as I said already, changed our lives. And
wow.
I never looked back. So it's been since then that well, of course, Kelly with celiac, but I think, as you know, when you have a diagnosis and you're told you have to do something, sometimes that's still hard for people.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody tells you you have to do something, it's, I think, almost human nature to like not want to do it because you're like, oh, I have to do that.
And I can
So
imagine
just that,
I was going to say, I can imagine at the time that like your family is in this pretzel business as well, and you're now
yeah,
on
yeah.
this grain-free diet. Oh, like, were you actively looking to create a pretzel business, or were you already selling pretzels and had to change it to grain-free? How did that happen?
There was a gap of at least, I would say 15 years, at least 15 years between starting going grain free and developing Savor by Suzie. So there was a really big gap of time, which was composed of, getting Kelly healthier, being her partner in that journey, and actually redefining how, I mean, I'm sure you know this, Jenny, with going gluten free, and your listeners, going gluten free is a new way of life. Like, you have to learn how to cook, you have to learn how to shop, and have to learn how to be social, go to a restaurant and, tell your friends, I'm sorry, I can't eat the dinner you just served me, or whatever it is that you have to go through. And all those things are really hard. So really just learning how to navigate that world was a big chunk of time. And then that's what happened. A lot of the people in my community were saying they watched what we were doing, and they finally said, I shouldn't say finally, they said, gosh, like, look at what you guys have done. You should be helping other people with this. And so that's how I decided to be a coach. I went back to school and studied nutrition theory. I never got a licensed dietitian degree, but I was able to work with doctors and help their patients and have some of my own clients that just, I gave them the parameters of what we'd be working on or asked them what they wanted to work on. And if it fit into my parameters, then we were good to go. A lot of it was focused on the cooking and food lists and things like that. I taught cooking classes.
Yeah.
I love food. I've always loved food. So, you know, transitioning from the wheat-based pretzel to a cassava pretzel, yes, it took time, but it was natural. It was like a natural progression that I would do that because food was always sort of center point in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
What was that like? Making a grain-free pretzel with cassava flours probably wasn't a really well-known flour at the time. Did you have to go through a lot of different iterations? How did that formulation work?
Yeah, great question. We actually, prior to Savor by Suzie, we had another brand, believe it or not. It never really took off because we decided, we developed it, got the recipe, got the pretzel, actually went to Expo West with it back in, I don't even know, 2014, 2015 or something. And then we recognized that, startups require so much energy and investment that we put the pause button on it. And at that time, the recipe, there was no cassava. So our recipe was not grain free. It had some rice in it, it had some sorghum and millet and things like that. And it was a great pretzel and people loved it. But fast forward, to 2020 when we developed our dough for Savor by Suzie, we had cassava at our fingertips. So it really helped to make a pretzel that resembles in taste and feel and crunch like a regular pretzel. Maybe a little crunchier, but for the most part, very much the cassava was a game changer for sure.
Yeah. And isn't cassava a one-to-one with wheat flour? Like you could use it as a great, what were you able to just swap it out or do you have to make a lot of changes?
No, we were able, well, we definitely made a lot of changes because it's not an exact science of the one-to-one. And pretzels have to go through a caustic bath. There's other like components to making a pretzel. So I would say, you couldn't just take cassava and put in place of wheat and be done. We decided to go a little bit more in depth around adding a few other things in order to get the dough to be the right stickiness and also the right taste.
Were you
Adding
able
a
to
little
use
bit.
your equipment, the equipment that you had from the
Yeah,
pretzel factory? Yeah, you just cleaned it
yeah.
out and
We
transferred
cleaned
it all.
everything out. Well, we were already making gluten free on this line for other customers. So yes, it was actually a line that we purchased to be dedicated gluten free line prior to Savor by Suzie. So we we have a dedicated gluten-free line. Like we only make, even if we only run that oven however many days a month, we still keep it as a dedicated gluten-free line. That's something that's important to us.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I wish I could come see your pretzel fat. I like want to
You
know
should
how
come.
I want to know how it's made. Like I just the process, it just sounds so fascinating. Okay, so now you've got this winning formula for a cassava grain-free based pretzel. You've done some
Mhm.
formulation. And now you're building this brand. How'd you come up with the name Savor by Suzie? What did you start doing to actually build this brand and, get into retail, start selling your pretzels? I'm curious where all that started.
Yeah, so I was just making a note to myself. I think that would be a really fun video to do, like pretzel baking from start to finish,
Yes.
in our factory. But so we have a team of bakers that are incredible. As I said, they've been with us for a long time. Some of them are newer, some of them have been around a long time, but they know how to make pretzels. Pretzels are what they do, and
Mm.
so the I can't give away all the exact specifics of the process, but I will say that, it's interesting. Some of the members on our team were really discouraged and thought we're never going to be able to do this. And I knew they could do it. I knew they could do it. I knew that they had the heart and the soul to do it. And I knew that with some persistence, they would get it right because they knew the equipment so well. They knew how to manipulate dough, how to get dough to, cooperate, if you will. And so it took longer than we wanted it to take, but it was, it wasn't a bad experience. I mean, it
Yeah.
was definitely a very rewarding, exciting time. And I can remember the day that they called and said, we got it. And I was like, yay, but I think, having that mindset of when you really believe in something and when you're really intentional about what you're doing and just trusting the process, like all of those lessons are lessons that carry throughout life, whatever it is you're doing. If you're having to go gluten free and you are afraid or you're nervous or it's exhausting, all of those things, you need that encouragement to keep going, or you need that encouragement to not feel alone, in it. Um, and those things, I mean, that's one of the things I feel that are so important about what we stand for and who we are at Savor by Suzie, is because this community is so important to us. It's our roots. It's where we started, and it's,
It's
we're
personal.
here to yeah, it's personal. Yeah.
Definitely personal to you and to Kelly and your
Yeah.
family. I'd love to learn a little bit more. Like, I know you're obviously in the thick of building this brand. It's a fairly new brand, Savor by Suzie. What are some of the challenges that you're having, and getting retail growing? I'm just curious, how are you getting this into the hands of the people who need this most?
Well, we've made the commitment to sell online. And that's been really, really important, I think, for this community because, it's hard to find when you're a new brand starting out, it's hard to get into retail stores. They require processes that take a long time. They require investment, from the standpoint of whether you're giving them free product or you're buying shelf space. They require some sort of, data that shows that you're actually going to sell so that you can justify actually being on their shelf. There's competition, of course, other brands that may have gotten there first or who have something similar, and the retailer will say, we don't need you because we have, you know, G brand over here
Yeah.
or A brand or whatever it is. And I think we all know the ones that have been around for a while. And so you can't exactly say, well, we're better than them. Because that's not true, I mean, we're all here to serve a purpose. So we've really made that commitment to online and being on Amazon, which is a huge commitment. I mean, Amazon in the time that we started to now has changed dramatically, in terms of their systems and their processes and how we ship product to them, how they ship it to customers, how we get charged for that. It's crazy, but we've continued to make that commitment, A, because we do want to serve our customers, and B, because we want to continue our mission. And our mission is to solve for the high unemployment rates with autistic adults. And so our fulfillment team is predominantly autistic, and we bring in students from local schools. We hire people. Even in our factory, we make an effort to do that, not just in our fulfillment area. But so that's been a huge part, I think, in launching our brand and who we are. It's 50% of our sales comes from online sales.
Wow.
We also have our own website that, in fact, we're redoing right now. Like our new website should be launching in the next 2 weeks. And that has been, again, a place for people to go. And we just sent out customer appreciation packages to not all of our customers, because we have a lot of customers, but to our top, customers, we send out the packages, and we send out coupons all the time. We love to do sampling. We love to just be accessible for people, and be relatable for people. So I do believe, and we see this in other brands, for different reasons, but the same sort of success. We just launched on TikTok Shop. So if anyone's on TikTok, head over there. We're offering an exclusive, cute little box. It's like this big, and it has 3 little mini packs.
Oh, I love it.
bags because
Yeah.
we brainstorm on all this stuff, like what should we do here? What should we do there? What would customers want? And we thought, well, for TikTok, maybe we'll just do something that's a really reachable price point and also just, a little thing for somebody to try.
Right.
So, we haven't had enough time to find out if that's going to be successful or not. But, trying different things and, you know, sticking to it, staying true
Yeah.
to what you believe in and staying intentional. And there are challenges. I mean, I was in tears earlier today over something, but I do feel that all of the things, like I always believed, whether it's yoga or coaching or whatnot, when people tell you like you are right where you're supposed to be, like look at you, Jenny, look at all the things that
Oh,
you've done, and where you are right now, doing this podcast. It's amazing.
oh my gosh, you're
And
so sweet. Thank
it's
you.
a lot of work, but
A
it's
lot of
like you
work.
feel guided in some sort of way and you
Yeah,
follow that internal guidance, and everything that we do leads us to our next point. So,
exactly. Y'all see why I
the
love Suzie
coaching.
so much? She's awesome. I love you,
Oh,
Suzie. You are so incredible. And I think I think a lot of people, they go to the grocery store and they think that these products are just magically there, but there's so much that goes into it. And a lot of new and even smaller, more niche businesses like a Savor by Suzie making grain-free and gluten-free pretzels, you're more leaning into this online world, the Amazon world, the TikTok world, because I feel like sometimes these retailers are making it impossible for smaller brands to break in. Is that your sense too?
it's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit about like your commitment to employing autistic adults. And I read on your website that you said something like 85% of autistic adults are unemployed. And I was like, wow, because I think a lot of them want to feel useful. They want to have a job. They want to do things. And you really tapped into that as part of your mission and your business. And I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about your commitment to employing the autism community and even Kelly, your daughter, and her role in the company and how
Mm.
that has evolved. I think that's such a neat story.
No, thank you for asking. Um, to your listeners, go to Instagram and check out our feed because we share. Kelly writes a quote every week. We're sharing for April. Well, this will probably be posted in May. But anyway, yeah, you can get the history on Instagram of some of our videos around the topics that you're asking about. And I say this because you'll see Kelly and you'll hear Kelly, and she's speaking about these things. What happened was Kelly, they call it aged out at 21. If you're an autistic adult, what they call age out, you're no longer in the supportive system that you've been in for
Hmm.
schooling and transitioning and things like that. And so, we're trying to figure out what is she going to do now? And she did get a part-time job, lost that job almost immediately, then got another part-time job that was lovely and beautiful, but she never really got more than 4 hours a week. And I kept thinking, she has so much more to offer, and she has leadership skills. And I could see her, she'd tell me stories of things that were happening at work, where she was helping other people or sharing new processes, or even telling the owners of the company, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try that? They were making candles. And she said, why don't you give them a name? Like, whatever it might be, happiness, gratitude, or,
Hmm.
whatnot. Anyhow, she had all these ideas. So, she's got the entrepreneurial blood in her. So I said, why don't you come work for us and see how you like it? And so she started out with our online business packing boxes, and she hated it at first. She was throwing the pretzels. She hates when I tell the story, but it's true. She did. It was very challenging for her, but she learned how to do it. And she not only learned how to do it, she learned her own way. She said, "This is how I'm going to do it because it makes me think and feel that I'm putting good energy into the package." And when this because you pack your boxes this way. You're
Yeah.
so intentional with everything you do. It's so done with love. The design of the box, the way you pack it, the companies that you use, the whole thing, and it's the same thing. And she felt really strongly about that. And I loved that. And so she was doing that for a long time. And then as we built out our team, she was training our team. And we learned so much from that process in terms of, yes, there's one way to do things, and maybe it might be the fastest way, but that doesn't mean it's the best way. There's lots of ways to get to the same endpoint, and giving people that time and space. And as you said, give them the excitement around doing it their way, even if it is different than the way you might have thought they should do it. They have that sense of accomplishment and that sense of being a part of something. That to me you know, is the crack. That is the passion that fuels the passion, is watching that transformation and watching somebody light up from that experience. And so, we just were blessed, honestly. Kelly really accentuates, exuberates, she is the energy of Savor by Suzie. I mean, just the way she shows up at every meeting in this positive attitude, and she's just very literal. She's very, if she's hungry, she'll say, "I'm hungry. Can I go get something to eat?" She doesn't have the filter that so many of us have that can keep us from, sharing the energy that we all need to feel. And, that's the energy of love and acceptance and being yourself.
Wow. I'm like imagining Kelly's journey, like when she was diagnosed with autism and probably all the struggles and therapy sessions and things that you guys had to go through together to get to this point where now Kelly's thriving in your business and helping run your social media and things like that. Like that's just such an incredible journey and a true testament to what you're doing, Suzie, and your commitment to really not only helping your daughter, but also the entire autistic community. I think that's just so beautiful. And if people knew this story too, I think they'd be like even more excited about your company. I mean, obviously you make amazing pretzels, I'm not going to lie, but I think just the backstory and what you're doing to help the autism community is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Well, lots of companies have, things that they give back to, and, we do financially contribute to the um, autism organizations. We do a fundraiser every year with Autism Speaks. We do other, um, you know, donations and things like that with organizations. But this to me was what felt really good, because it was like I can be involved in it. I'm a hands-on kind of person, and I can firsthand see somebody's, like I said before, their experience and how it changes their life, or how, because really they're changing our lives more than we're
Right.
changing theirs.
Right. Such a good perspective. I love that so much. So tell me something that you've kind of learned about yourself along the way and starting this business, or whether it's, some of the struggles of growing a new pretzel business or even employing autistic adults. What are some of the things you've learned, some of the biggest lessons?
Yeah.
Big
I
question.
mean, it's a great question. I dig that kind of stuff as being a coach. I love these kinds of questions. And I think the answers change on a daily basis, depending on what's going on. But I think that whole concept of sticking to it, and when we started out, we made our core values. We said, these are our core values. This is what we believe in. This is what we stand for. This is who we are. And when life happens and things happen and plans don't go according to the way you planned them, sometimes it's easy to compromise, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that might not be a good thing. And I feel like the keeper of the code or whatever with Savor by Suzie. And I feel like I always refer to Savor by Suzie as a she. I feel she is an entity that is driven by the feminine energy, and she's here to drive change. And so, I feel like I have to stand up for those core values, or I have to stand up for what we believe in, even when maybe it doesn't align with something in the world that, in the business world, that other people might make a different decision. So I tend to My voice has gotten so much stronger through this process. In the beginning, I doubted myself so much, and I thought, oh, the people who've been here longer, the people in our company, the people outside our company, they've been here longer, they know more than me. And yes, that's true, but they don't have that voice of Savor by Suzie. So someone has to speak that voice. And so that's something that I would say probably the most important lesson is just knowing what that is and standing up for it, sticking to it, and of course, molding it and modifying it, because, you can't just be, um, you know, stubborn through the whole process. But if you give that up, I think you're giving up really a lot,
Yeah.
and I'm not willing to do that. So,
What do you think
and this,
what do you think your dad would say, like seeing his daughter with this grain-free pretzel company and continuing the family legacy, maybe in a little bit different way than he imagined, but still continuing it?
I think he's very proud. I think that I'm a big believer in, his guidance still being a big part of my life, and I ask him questions a lot. And I think that that guidance is very different coming from the spiritual realm than coming from the human realm. And so I actually rely on a spiritual board of directors sometimes to kind of, you know, put me in my place, so to speak, and just check on myself. How
Mm.
am I doing? How are we doing? Should we keep going? Should we do this? I get excited about innovation and new opportunities, but so often we have to put the brakes on because we have to really build what we have already. And so, things like that. I just think that's very intuitive too. So important that we listen to our intuition, and that's very connected to spirit. So, listening to that kind of advice, asking for that kind of advice, and, trusting the process. And I do believe that this was part of the process. I do believe that, you know, having a family legacy is a lot of weight on your shoulders sometimes, but at the same time, it's really, again, as I said before, it's part of that journey and saying, this is what we got excited about. This is who we are, and we're gonna give it our best and see where we go.
Yeah, for sure. I really admire entrepreneurs who have sort of turned their own mess into their mission in a way,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
you're dealing with all of these challenges with Kelly and her diagnoses. I don't know if that's the right word. And, you're making the best of this for both her and your family and for everyone in this community. And I think that those are just the best stories, and you can just feel that Savor by Suzie was built out of a lot of heart and a real personal mission to you. It's really beautiful. I think your dad would be so proud of you and Kelly and everything that you guys have built. So kudos to you.
Thank you,
um,
Jenny.
of course, of course. So, Suzie, before we wrap things up, I have a few little rapid fire questions for you. Uh-oh.
Okay.
So no
No, we're good. We're good.
overthinking. No
Hmm.
overthinking here. Just maybe say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Got it.
All right. So sweet or salty snack, what are you grabbing first?
Sweet.
Sweet. Oh, that's very ironic for
Dark chocolate. Yeah.
that's true. Like y'all might not know they have dark chocolate covered pretzels. Yum. All right. What's your
Yeah.
favorite gluten-free snack right now? And you can't say your own.
Well, I mean, I eat a lot of nuts, so that's not
Yeah.
like the best answer.
That's the nutrition side of you. You're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
eat
Yeah,
something
exactly.
healthy. What is a gluten or who is a gluten-free brand you admire right now?
I would say Sweet Lawrence. Well, I've never met her, but I feel that she has really good energy, and I really believe that she's done a beautiful job with her brand.
I think so too. I really admire that brand too. So, what is one ingredient you wouldn't be caught dead putting in your pretzels?
Sugar. I mean, like pure sugar, Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit in our dark chocolate, but we try to keep it as minimal as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, a lot of gluten-free products have excess sugar in it, so it's very interesting to hear like
Right.
you just no sugar. And even with the grain-free, it's low sugar in that way too. Okay, describe yourself in 3 words.
Serious. I tend to be too serious. Loyal. I'm very loyal and very loving.
I agree with all those things. You are to me, like since I've known you. Okay. Well, you completed the lightning round. You did a good job. So tell
Thank
me
you, Jenny.
now what is next for Savor by Suzie? Do you guys have any exciting plans on the horizon? Any new products in the works?
Yeah, I'm not really able to talk a whole lot about it, but
Secret.
I think we're going to get through 2025 with what we currently have on our shelf, if you will. But in 2026, we're looking to launch some new items. We've been wanting to launch a stick pretzel for a long time, and I think we
Mm,
will. But uh, we're just holding off until the right time. So we'll see about that and a few
that makes
other items. But I have so many ideas.
sense.
So many ideas, so many things I want to do. It just all comes back to timing and resources.
Right. You have entrepreneur brain. It's like a million
Oh,
directions you can go
I
in, right?
do, I do, I do.
I feel that. I feel that in my bones. So, well, how can people stay in touch with you?
They can reach me at Savor by Susie's website. We have a contact form, or Suzie at Savor by Suzie, or hop on over to Instagram and check us out there, Savor by Suzie, or Sundays with Suzie is my personal Instagram if you want to check out what's happening in my world. And we would love to give all of your listeners a coupon to go check us out and try our products. Go to our website and get 20% off. So we'll include
Awesome.
that in the show notes. How
Yeah.
does that sound?
Okay. Yeah. Definitely check the show notes and we'll get a coupon up there. And people can absolutely go try your products. Like, seriously, what are people waiting for? You got to go try these products. They're so delicious. These pretzels are so good. And like I said, like I've always said to you, my mom is your biggest fan. She is constantly asking me, do you have any of those Suzie pretzels? So I
Aw.
think you have a lot of fans, not just in the gluten-free community, but anyone. These pretzels are for everyone. They're super inclusive, so delicious. So go get them. Thank you for the coupon too. Thank you for listening to Gluten Free Unwrapped. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone in your gluten-free circle. You can connect with me, Jenny, on Instagram at GoodForYouGlutenFree, and be sure to check out my carefully curated celiac-friendly subscription boxes at lovemeglutenfree.com. I'll return next week to unwrap more inspiring stories from the people shaping the gluten-free world. Until next time, stay strong, eat well, and remember, you don't have to do this alone.